끝난 줄로만 알았던 LP의 부활 소식이 이따금 들려온 지도 꽤 됐습니다. 몇 해 전에는 CD의 생산량을 추월했다는 얘기도 나왔습니다. 하지만 지금은 스트리밍의 시대, 다시는 LP가 곧 음악이던 그 시절로 돌아갈 수 없다는 것을 오브리 파월도 잘 알고 있습니다.
There will never ever be again this album cover period, ever, because it's gone. It lasted 15 years and luckily Hipgnosis were at the forefront of that movement.
오브리 파월과 스톰 소거슨이 함께 창립했던 힙노시스는 LP 커버의 전설로 불립니다. LP 음반의 전성기인 1960년대 후반부터 1980년대 초반까지 그들이 디자인한 사각형 앨범 커버는 세계적인 명성을 얻었습니다. 핑크 플로이드, 레드 제플린, 폴 맥카트니 등등 지금까지도 최고의 록그룹과 뮤지션으로 불리는 이들이 힙노시스에게 자신들의 앨범 커버 디자인을 맡겼습니다. 애플 TV 플러스에 있는 어느 음악 다큐멘터리 시리즈의 제목처럼 1970년대는 음악이 모든 것을 바꾼 시대였습니다. 한국에서의 첫 전시를 위해 서울에 온 힙노시스의 디자이너 오브리 파월이 더모먼트에서 그 시대를 증언합니다. 팔순을 바라보는 나이지만 오브리 파월은 정정했습니다. 힙노시스의 나머지 두 멤버는 이미 세상을 떴고 이제 그만 남았습니다. 20대의 오브리 파월이 LP 음반 커버 제작에 발을 들여놓은 1960년대 후반에는 대중음악계에 새로운 기운이 싹트고 있었습니다.
In the 1970s, the importance of album covers was it was the first time really that artists in photography and graphic design had an opportunity to express themselves in terms of the music, in terms of the artist, in terms of the lyrics of the band. And for that you could do anything, really. And prior to that, when album covers first started, which was in 1946, it was only a picture of the band or the artist on the front cover. And this all changed completely, and Hipgnosis were at the forefront of this change. So people started to write about these more cerebral notions, not just love songs. And this movement in the 1970s was incredibly powerful for the young people. You know, it was political, it was emotional, it was cerebral, and it led to a young generation, a youth generation, who thought more about what was going on around them. It was an awareness movement. Progressive rock of people like Genesis and Pink Floyd, they started to have that political undertone too. And if you listen to Dark Side of the Moon, for example, you've got elements of madness, you've got elements of wealth, money, you've got elements which involve loss. When I went to see the band at Abbey Road Studios, they said, we want something different, like a graphic image, something simple that represents us. So about 2 weeks later, I'm reading a magazine which is about physics and the physics of light. And in this magazine, there is an image of a triangle with a white line like that, going through a glass prism, creating a rainbow. And Storm looked at me and he said, I have it. I know exactly the right idea for Pink Floyd. It should be this image of the pyramid. They thought, this is exactly our image. But who would have thought that that simple image, 50 years later, would be one of the most iconic album covers ever created? I never thought that. Nowadays, when you go to Spotify or you go to YouTube, you have a little tiny picture like this. It doesn't mean anything. But in the 1970s, it meant everything. And this was an important asset to the band. People would get their album cover from the shop on a Saturday morning and listen to the music, and then they would look at the album cover and study every part of it to try to understand what it meant and what it was to do with in relationship to their favorite band.
Do you think you can tell? Did they get you?
Now, if you ask me, would I welcome in the 1970s to have Photoshop, I would say yes. Because, for example, say The Man on Fire, Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here, we did everything for real. We set the man on fire. Now I would do that in Photoshop in 2 hours. I would take a picture of the men shaking hands and take some fire and create it. And AI, even easier to do that.
불타오르네.
When I saw the BTS video and I saw this homage to Hipgnosis with the man on fire, I thought this is really pleasing because, you know, it means that people are taking things from an image we did many years ago and still they're using this. You know, it's wonderful. I love that. We'd sit in a circle and we would talk about ideas, and sometimes there were many people in the room. Sometimes there were drug dealers, there were prostitutes, there were other designers, there were people who happened to be in there. There were all kinds of strange people around us, really, knife throwers, all kinds of strange people used to come to these meetings in Storm's apartment. And we would talk about ideas, but not ideas for the group, not for the band, about what we wanted to do. I remember Storm, we were sitting there and he said, I had a dream about the sea and the sheep, and I said, what's this mean? You know, he said, I don't know, but the sea is a symbol for the psyche, and the sheep is a symbol for people, and the couch is a symbol for psychiatry, so it's some deep meaning, but I don't know what it is, but I think it would be a good idea. So when we went to see 10cc to sell them the idea, well, what's that got to do with our music? Because 10cc's music was very pop music. And we said, well, it has nothing really to do with your music, but it's a good idea. Okay, we like that. So then they said to me, where do you want to do it? Somewhere in the south coast of England? Somewhere? I said, it's January. It's very cold. No, I want to shoot that in Hawaii. Of course you should go to Hawaii. I went to Hawaii. So in those days, the thought process behind Hipgnosis covers was very serious, and it was not necessarily about the music or the band or anything to do with the lyrics. Sometimes it was, but not necessarily. Many times in the work you see in this exhibition, it's completely ideas from Storm and myself and Peter Christopherson. But with somebody like Paul McCartney, who was a Beatle, he had his own ideas many times. And he often would say, okay, this is what I want to do. Will you make it happen for me? Storm, he was never interested to work for him. He said, it's not my idea, it's not Hipgnosis' idea, I don't want to do it. But I liked Paul McCartney. I got on with him very well. And I said, okay, I will do it for Hipgnosis. First of all, it was Paul McCartney. And the second thing was he paid a lot of money. He was probably the only musician we ever worked for who came with his own ideas. Most of the time, it was all our ideas. He was an exception, but he was also a Beatle. I received a telephone call one morning from Colin Firth. I didn't know Colin Firth. I know him as an actor, but I don't know him personally. And he said, I want to make a film about Hipgnosis. I said, really? Why? He said, because I'm a huge fan of vinyl. He said, I collect vinyl, I have thousands of vinyl albums, and I have all your books, and I know a lot about hypnosis, and I think it would make a very interesting story. Can we meet and have lunch? So I met him, and we talked, and I realized that he was an aficionado of hypnosis work. He knew every album cover, everything that we had done. It was incredible. I was so impressed. So he said to me in the end of lunch, you want to make this film? I said, of course I would like to make this film. And then I asked him, do you have the money? There's a big difference between how it was creating pictures in the 1970s and today's creative work. In those days, we had time to study the pictures and to make a decision about what was the best picture, the best composition, the best color, the best way in which each picture worked. We had time, plenty of time. Nowadays, there's no time. When somebody wants something, they want it tomorrow because they know they can get it tomorrow. So you come with an idea, you say this, this, and this. They say, okay, we need it on Friday. Bang. And what I see a lot in photographs that are taken now, or images or music films, there is not the thought process behind it. It doesn't have the time to get it right, to make it perfect, to make everything absolutely be a picture that stands the test of time. We had that time, and that was a privilege to have that. When you go to Spotify, or if you have a hit, it can be seen by 3 billion people. Let's say Taylor Swift. It's huge, the market for that. But they're not seeing her, they're hearing the music. Whereas in the 1970s, the album sold in tens of millions, but people saw the picture on the cover, and this meant something to them. And I think it's important that the translation from the 1970s to now is important to be understood by students of photography, by students of art, by people who study cultural periods of time. There will never ever be again this album cover period, ever, because it's gone. It lasted 15 years, and luckily, Hipgnosis were at the forefront of that movement.
LP는 가난한 이들의 미술 소장품이다. 90년대 영국의 국민 밴드 오아시스의 리더 노엘 갤러거가 힙노시스의 다큐 영화에 나와 이렇게 말했습니다. 누군가가 한 말인데 자기가 한 말이었으면 좋겠다고 말하면서요. 오브리 파월의 말대로 LP의 시대는 갔습니다. 록그룹이 전용기를 타고 다니며 수천만 장씩 LP를 팔던 시기도 끝났습니다. 하지만 그 시절 음악을 하고 예술을 하고 뭔가를 창조하던 과정, 그리고 그것들을 감상하고 음미하던 문화에서 오늘날의 우리가 되돌아봐야 할 만한 것들은 없을까요?
우리 집 양이는 밤마다 뛰어다녀요. 도대체 왜 이러는 걸까요? 추워. 예방주사 어디 갔어 할까요? 당신의 궁금증 지식비서 스포에서 해결하세요.